quite frankly, I would quite comfortably rule them out of the NFC East title race. Like, it's pretty ballsy call for me because
Bold.
the Eagles aren't playing that well themselves, but I don't know. I just back the Eagles in
Yeah,
over the Cowboys right now.
I agree.
Quite
If I
quite a
if
lot.
I was putting money on it, I'd go the Eagles for sure.
Yeah,
Do with him,
and then
Well, mate, my other riser is Lamar Jackson. So he was starting to be doubted by a few people, including yourself. But he put the doubters to bed this week, showing that he should be in that top 3 QB range. 28 points. Eagles are a pretty good defense as well. Like, they're no slouch. I think.
It's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, the ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Taylor Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday.
welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 78 of the show. Once again, joined by Christian Pilcher. How are we, mate?
Good, thanks, mate. How are we?
Yeah, very excited. Back again for the NFL podcast. Can't lie. This is obviously we're doing 2 or 3 episodes a week. Got to spread the attention, but this is my main bloody focus every week. I love this potty. We did our debut all-nighter. Well, you did sleep a little bit, but basically an all-nighter. So for those listening in the United States or wherever you are in the world, where we live in Australia, in Melbourne, at the moment, the 1 p.m. kickoffs start at 4 a.m. for us. So if you want to catch it all, you've got to have a pretty early morning, or you've got to just not sleep, which is what we did. Pilch, you only had about 3 hours sleep or something, and I went the all-nighter. But we finally, for the first time ever, we've talked about doing it for a long time, but we finally watched it. Sadly, they don't have Red Zone anymore, because I heard that was great back in the day, but it was only like 2 seasons ago. But it was great fun especially following all the fantasy scores and stuff like that. Seeing all the big plays come in, it was pretty exciting. Definitely think it'll be a weekly thing now for me anyway.
Yeah, look, probably me as well. Have you recovered from the all-nighter? Have you got the sleep schedule?
I think I've got one more good to sleep to go. Like, I normally don't get tired ever. Like, I have to force myself to sleep. But the last 2 nights I've got tired like late in the evening. So it'll be interesting to see how I go. But I think one more good night's sleep, I think I'll be G. It actually has kind of helped me reset my sleep schedule. But so maybe that's a tip to those playing at home. Stay up for 40 hours straight. But today we'll be talking about week 6 of the NFL and a little bit of week 7 at the end. To those who haven't listened to any of the NFL podcasts so far, feel free to subscribe or follow the podcast, whatever platform you're on. Get around us on social media, because we do one of these every single week. And yeah, it's always good fun. We talk about NFL in real life, but also NFL and fantasy. We love both aspects of the sport. So yeah, let's start with match of the week for week 6. Who are you going for this one?
Match of the week, Titans-Texans. This was, I don't know if it's yours as well, but this was one of the games that we were watching the fantasy cast swing in during our all-nighter. But obviously a great game. Couldn't watch it, but I mean, it was just touchdown central, 42-36 in OT. Derrick Henry kind of put the squad on his back and chucked up, I think, over 200 rushing yards and like 80 receiving yards or something, and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, that was a good game.
Yeah, absolutely killed it. Did you see when they did the toss before OT?
Watson.
Yeah. He just knew that they were about to get the Derrick Henry sausage, which is what they did get.
He knows how bad his defense is.
But yeah, it was basically just Henry versus Watson the whole time. But yeah, absolute shootout. Probably wasn't expecting it from the Texans. I think they've been quite good. Might touch on that in a little bit. But I had 2 matches of the weeks because I thought I couldn't split these 2. But my other one was the Ravens versus the Eagles. This was obviously it was the Texans Titans was hectic because it was just back and forward and it went to OT. But in terms of a last minute finish and a second half comeback, the Ravens versus Eagles was the one to have watched. Yeah, it was just hectic. they had a 2-point attempt, I think, with like 30 or 40 seconds to go, where everyone knew it was the match right there. That unfortunately failed for Wentz and the Eagles, but the Eagles were storming home 4 second half touchdowns, and it would have been a pretty amazing win for a team that have had a pretty poor start to the season. So, yeah, that was a pretty surprising one. Wouldn't have expected it to be that close with the Ravens meant to be one of the better teams going around. But yeah, that was a shock, but also a very high quality match.
Yep.
Most impressive victory of the week.
Just quickly before we get onto that, what are your thoughts on the Washington football team going for 2 with the last play, or just when teams do that in general? I just think it's so retarded.
It's pretty suspect. Like, surely as a coach, you have faith in your team to get it done in overtime. Like, you have to have faith in your players as a coach. Like, I don't really get why they do that.
Yeah, I reckon it's got to be.
You suggested tanking.
It's got to be tanking. I just can't see the logic behind it.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It's like any other sport, I would say like, nah, no way. But NFL, they legit do tank. Basketball as well. But yeah, I don't know what was going on there. Pretty strange. But the Giants, they'll take it.
Yep.
They'll take anything they can get at this point. But yeah, most impressive victory.
Most impressive victory, I had 2 actually. Firstly, the Steelers over the Cleveland Browns. Not necessarily an upset, but just the way that they absolutely smashed them 38-7. Quite a few people had this game pretty close coming into it.
It was comprehensive. Like, they stopped the run. They first team to be able to stop the Browns on the ground, and then obviously Baker had a bit of a stinker. So yeah, it was very clinical. Did not look like the Browns were even close to Steelers level. But what was the other one?
Yeah, the Steelers run D is absolutely nasty.
Yeah.
The other one was kind of similar. This one, I don't know if you think this is an upset, but the Buccaneers smashing the Packers 38-10. Yeah, I didn't really see that coming. I thought Rodgers and the Packers would get up there, and the Bucs just put on a clinic, especially the defense.
Yeah, this was my most disappointing loss. I was listening to a podcast and they were saying there's not really any worries here for the Packers, and to a certain extent I do agree, but losing by 28 points, and they didn't really show much fight after they went down early. Like, yeah, it didn't look great, and this could be a team that they play further down the line, come January or whenever the playoffs are going to happen this season. And yeah, not good from the Packers, brilliant from the Buccaneers. Their offense wasn't even really firing that well, and they put up 38 points. Like, Brady didn't even play that well.
Yeah. Ronald Jones looks very good, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I know. Like, the fact that they've got Ronald Jones and then Fournette just chilling on the bench the last few weeks, like, it's pretty scary stuff for the rest of the NFC. I just had a few written down here. Most impressive victories. I thought the Broncos beating the Patriots in Foxborough was pretty good win. Probably wasn't expecting it. Yes, the Patriots have had a lot of COVID issues, so their mind probably wasn't fully on the game, missing quite a few players. But for the Broncos, they're a great defense. They have been for quite a long time. Won them the Super Bowl, but to keep the Patriots to 12 points, I think that was pretty special. And then my other 2 were the 49ers beating the Rams. I don't think many people were predicting that. I think a lot of people thought the Rams were back to their 2018 ways this year, and the 49ers had kind of fallen off, but 49ers showed that they've still got it, and that NFC West is going to be a very close division this year. And then my other one, this might be a disappointing loss for you. I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder here, but the Cardinals flogging the Cowboys 38-10. It was pretty much over by a quarter time, this one, so don't think many people saw that coming, even with Dalton debuting for the side. So I think there were quite a few impressive victories this week. Disappointing loss. Have I said all of yours in that little spiel there? Or
yeah, well, I had the Patriots losing to the Broncos.
Yeah,
I mean, it could fit into either category, but yeah, I just think it would have been a pretty bad performance by the Patriots. And do you know if there was a single touchdown in that match? Like, I actually think there might not have been, because I'm pretty sure the Broncos kicker kicked 6 field goals.
Really?
Or maybe 4 and 1 touchdown. But
I know Drew Lock, he had like 10 completions for like 100 yards or something. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, and I don't
And
think Lindsay got in to the end
yeah,
zone.
Lindsay didn't get a touchdown. I don't know about the Patriots. They
Yeah,
might have
they might have.
won,
They might have.
but I'm not 100% sure there, to be honest. But either way, it's a bit of a strange game. I wonder what the weather was like. It wouldn't shock me if that was a bad weather game, because that
Yeah.
seems like it. Do you have any others to mention, or?
No, I just had that one, but definitely the Cowboys.
My other one would be the Vikings losing to the Falcons. Obviously, the Falcons have had a horror start to the year. They are still a good team, love to put up points, but yeah, to lose fairly comfortably in that one. They were down by like 20 points most of the game, and then a junk time touchdown in the last like 5 minutes got it back within 20 points. I think that's pretty poor from the Vikings, and I don't think there were many, but I think if there was any, I think their playoff hopes are all but gone now.
Yep, agreed.
And yeah, that's pretty disappointing from the Vikings, given how they've gone the last few seasons.
You reckon the Falcons could be spicy or not with the new coach?
Like for the future or this season?
Well, obviously they're not making the playoffs, but like, do you reckon they could like become good?
Yeah, I think the Texans are in the exact same spot for me.
Yeah,
I think they've got a good enough core in their teams with a good few years in terms of the draft and free agency and trades. And if they select the right man for the job, I can't see why they can't just bounce back straight into playoff contention. Like we've seen the Falcons this year. Yes, they were on 5, but they did have a tough fixture at the end of the day. They played a lot of good teams and they lost in a lot of high scoring shootouts. So I don't think it's completely cooked in those two teams. I wouldn't like if I was a assistant coach around the league looking for a head coaching job, I'd happily take those two up because there's a lot of upside there.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not too worried about the Falcons. It wouldn't even shock me if they go on a bit of a tear this last second half and get a few big scalps going.
Yep.
Probably not ideal for the Buccaneers and the Saints to be in their division, to be honest. I wouldn't want to play them at the end of the season. Things we learnt from week 6 of the NFL, mate. What's your first point?
My first point is actually about the Falcons, and it's that Julio Jones seems like he actually carries Matt Ryan. And that's a little theory of mine after seeing that match, because obviously they've had a huge connection for ages, but Ryan kind of went to shit when Julio was injured earlier in the year, and he came back and they went back to their old ways. So yeah, that's one of my things.
Yeah, I definitely could see that being true. I think that actually happens a lot more than we think.
Yeah,
I think we've seen it a little bit this year with Breeze and Thomas. I don't want to. He's doing fine this season, but we might be seeing it a little bit with Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. I think there are a lot of wide receivers that probably go underappreciated because they seemingly just get carried by their quarterback. But yeah, I like that point actually. And not only that, it can also just like affect the whole offense. Like if you look at the Saints, pretty much half their plays go to Michael Thomas. So you practice all preseason for that. So once you take that guy out of the system, I can imagine the offense is like all of a sudden completely different.
Yep.
But yeah, they definitely do make a huge difference, and I'm looking forward to him being in my fantasy team for the rest of the season. My first point, actually, you mentioned the Falcons there, and we talked about it a little bit before, but I'm going to say, I think Curtis, in one of the preseason episodes, he said this majestic quote. Curtis is someone who's often on the podcast, for those that don't know. He said this majestic quote, I think it was, basketball is the players' league, the baseball is the GM's league, and NFL is the coaching league. I could be wrong. He might not have said that, but I think he did.
I think he did.
I think he quoted that from someone, and I completely agree with it. We've seen right now, Bill O'Brien got sacked, Texans smashed the Jaguars, and they took probably one of the most informed teams in the Tennessee Titans to overtime. And then the Falcons just beat a pretty good Vikings team that pushed the Seahawks only recently. So I think we're seeing that coaches are so important in this league, and that, like even if you have good players or the opposite, you have bad players, I think the coaching is so underrated in this league. And we're seeing it right now with the Jets. Like even if they don't really have a good team on paper at all, to be honest. But we're seeing that they're showing absolutely no growth, and it's because like they've got the worst coach in the NFL history. But yeah, it's a pretty vague point for me, as I like to do on the show. But I just think sometimes it can be a little bit understated. But coaches are really the heartbeat of most NFL teams, and I think sometimes that can be forgotten, and maybe some people can think it's more down to the quarterback, but it is 100% a coach's league. So what's your next point, mate?
Yeah, that's similar to one of mine. I said if you want to start winning, sack your coach, because the amount of times
Every sport,
yeah,
it happens.
not just NFL, soccer, footy.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I can't say, but every time a team is like 0-4, they sack their coach. They just suddenly get really good, and we're seeing it again with Houston and Atlanta.
yeah, I don't really get it because like they wouldn't have time to change the playbook, so it's like they're probably running the exact same offense and defense, in the same way. But like, I don't get it. They seem to have
Might be a culture thing, I reckon.
Yeah, I think it's like it gets a bit stale. Like you probably start hearing the media reports that your coach could be sacked, then it gets a bit like, yeah, I feel like it gets a bit stale. And then once a new guy comes in and everyone's like up and about, keen for what the future has, and also maybe some players who are like on the fringe might want to try and impress the new guy, because like this is their opportunity to get a few more snaps or improve their position in the depth chart. So that could be another thing. But yeah, I do like that point. Every sport, though, it always happens.
Yeah, genuine.
My next point is that the Andy Dalton transition might not be as smooth as some were expecting. I know Andy Dalton is a highly touted quarterback, and he's been pretty good for a while. I know a lot of the the trendy NFL experts, they like to think that Andy Dalton was like pretty hardly done by it in Cincinnati because they just didn't really give him many weapons. But I think anyone who thinks he's going to come into the Cowboys and they're not going to skip a beat is, they're just dreaming. I think this Cowboys team might take quite a while to even get to like 70% of what they were before Dak got injured, just because they were such a high performing offense. So to take Dak out and put a new guy in who's never really been in a situation like this before, I think it's going to take a long time. And quite frankly, I would quite comfortably rule them out of the NFC East title race. Like it's pretty ballsy call for me because the Eagles aren't playing that well themselves, but I don't know. I just back the Eagles in over the Cowboys right now.
I agree. If I was putting money on it, I'd go the Eagles for sure.
Yeah, and the situation with Dalton as well is Zeke's not playing well. He's obviously it's been like highly talked about, but having issues with the fumbles. And then he can't lean back on his defense. It's not like Big Ben, for example. He can have a few bad games and it's all good because the defense will keep them down to like 15 points or something. Where Dalton, he's going to have to honestly put up 30 plus points for them to win any matches, which is very hard for someone. And he's quite a conservative quarterback. So, I just think there's a lot of expectation on him. I feel a bit bad for him, quite honestly. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty tough next month, especially for Dallas. But in saying that, they do have a fairly comfortable fixture on the run home. I think they play, I was looking at their fixture before, there's probably only 3 matches that I'd completely write off. But they play, I think, Washington twice. They obviously play the Giants, the Eagles twice. So they still could notch up quite a few wins. But I think everyone needs to lower their hopes for Dallas.
Those games against the Eagles are going to be huge.
Yeah. That'll decide it 100%. Yeah. I was looking at their run-ins; they're pretty similar. Play about 2 or 3 really good teams, and then apart from that, it's pretty soft. So those 2 games would definitely decide it, unless they probably split them down the middle. Then it's anyone's game. But what's your point? Other point?
My last one is, we were talking about this with our mate Curtis just 10 minutes ago, but this rookie wide receiver class could be one of the best that we've seen in a very long time. A lot of it due to how deep it is. You've got like 6 or 7 blokes who are already pretty much the alphas in their respective receiving cores, and they just all look like absolute ballers. CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, Claypool, and I'm very toy about them. I want them all on my fantasy team.
Yeah, they're all very exciting. Every week there seems to be two of them that go massive
Yep.
in terms of their stat lines, and it's definitely going to be interesting to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. But yeah, no, I rate that point. I think the running backs. Do you reckon the running backs have had a good start to the season in terms of the draft class, or do you think?
Well, coming in, they were touted to be like quite a good class, but I think they've definitely underperformed, partly due to the opportunities. Like Swift,
Yeah,
Dobbins haven't really been
yeah,
given a crack. Although Swift this week may have been a breakout game. Hopefully it
that's
was,
true.
but
Yeah, there's quite a few out of like the top 100. I don't know how many running backs there were, but definitely more than half of them haven't been given full cracks, really. Like Keyshawn Vaughn, he's like the RB3 at Tampa. Then you got AJ Dillon, who basically is a special teams player for Green Bay. And then, as you mentioned, J.K. Dobbins and Swift are doing absolutely nothing. So, yeah, there's probably a few guys who are just going to have to bide their time. I think running back's a position where they're probably not going to bang it straight away. But, yeah, I don't know.
But then
We'll
again,
see how.
you've got James Robinson and Gibson who were drafted quite low, and they look
Yeah,
like
that's
they
true.
look pretty
Yeah.
good.
And the quarterbacks look quite good. I know the
Yeah,
quarterbacks is hard to judge because it's only 3 or 4 people, but Herbert's doing well. Burrow's probably, well, I think people had high expectations for him, but I think he's definitely meeting them.
yeah,
And then I have one more point, but this was just a quick point I want to make. Next, we get to see Tua.
yes,
So
very
the news
exciting.
came out this morning in Australia. Obviously, it didn't come out in Australia, but Australian time this morning. The Dolphins rate Tua even higher than most of the NFL community. I think everyone's pretty big on Tua. I'm big on him. I think he was better than Joe Burrow coming out of college. I don't know college football that well, but um, I think his injury is definitely the reason why he went as low as he did.
Yeah,
And by saying low, I mean pick 5, which is just not low at all. But yeah, for me, I was reading articles saying the reason they're benching Fitzy for Tua is because they think they're a genuine playoff chance. So if that's the real reason, then they must have seriously high hopes for Tua if he can take this team to the playoffs over Fitzpatrick, who's been in pretty good form himself. Do you agree with the call? I could see where they're coming from because I think Fitzy, as great as he is, I think he does like cap how well they can go because we know what Fitzy is, where Tua's like could be the next GOAT. Who knows? But yeah, what do you think about it?
that is true. But Fitzy was balling out. Like apart from round 1, since then he's been playing really well. So I mean, I'm a little bit confused by it, but I mean, maybe Tua is already like a beast at training, and he's just going to come out and ball out. So
Yeah,
it's going to be bloody interesting to see.
I feel really bad for Fitzy. It is kind of his fault for becoming a beast at this age, but like in Tampa, they benched Winston or whatever for him, and he outperformed Winston. Then the Bucks let him go because they wanted to give Winston another crack at it. Then last year he overperformed at Miami. Miami beat everyone's expectations, getting 5 or 6 wins. Can't remember how many they got in the end, but no one was expecting that. And then this year. He was great once again, and he's put them in the playoff picture, which I think a few people were joking at, like me. I was kind of just hoping they were in there, but I didn't think they realistically were. But they honestly are, and I do feel bad for him because from here I don't know where he goes. I think the only thing for him would be if he goes to a poor team that drafts a high end quarterback next year, and he kind of just does the same thing as he did here, just play the first month or so and then hand over the reins. But that's a pretty bad gig, isn't it? Because like
Yeah, it's not ideal.
no one wants to have an expiry date. So I do feel bad for Fitzy, and as a Fitzy fantasy owner, I'm pretty pissed off because
Yeah,
he was
that's it.
he was performing very highly, and now all of a sudden I just have someone with no trade value. But that's okay. Definitely not cut about it. All right. My final point. I'm assuming you're out of points, but my final point before we get into the fantasy side of things, the rule to go from 2 wild cards to 3 wild cards is going to be the greatest decision ever made. I think it is making the season so much more interesting. I know we're already so far out from playoffs, but I think when we get down to it, it's going to make it so much more fun. I think the last few rounds, there's going to be some really important matches for a lot of teams. I think it brings so many more teams into the playoff picture. Like, for example, I was just looking at it before, but for me, these are the teams in the wild card picture for both conferences. So the NFC, you've got the Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, Bears, Saints, and Bucks. That's some high quality teams, but to think that only 3 of them are going to make it, it's pretty spicy to see who's going to miss out. And then the AFC have so many. They've got the Patriots, Dolphins, whoever loses out of the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, whoever loses out of the Colts, Titans, Raiders, and Broncos. So I think the move from 2 to 3 wild cards has brought in a lot of teams. There's not many irrelevant teams anymore in the NFL like there used to be. And I really think that's going to be a revolutionary rule change that will improve the product and just make it a little bit more exciting, because you won't have half the competition being out of it by week 8, which I'm really going to enjoy.
And it gets rid of tanking.
Yeah, exactly.
To an extent.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that moves us on to our player chat. So that we've done our overall chat. We do have a week 7 preview at the end if you don't care about NFL fantasy, but we're going to go through, award our position, our player of the week in each skill, like each offensive position, and then talk about who are the risers and fallers of the weeks in terms of our NFL rankings. Starting off though with the QB of the week. Who have you got here, mate?
QB of the week. I was tempted to give it to my man, but I think Deshaun Watson probably deserves it. There are a few contenders here. I know he didn't win, but he put up huge numbers. I think, was it 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers.
Yeah. So I mean, he carried the shit Texans side on his back, almost got them to OT, but yeah, I gave it to him over the others.
Yeah, to those who don't know, I'm probably going to have to say this every episode because I'm sure we have new viewers listening every week. Subscribe if you're new though. But I'm doing a 10-1 voting system every week of the NFL season, and I'm going to end up with like an MVP for each position. But yeah, Deshaun Watson got the 10 votes for me this week, pretty comfortably as well. He got them ahead of Matt Ryan, Garoppolo, Murray, and Rivers, who all had pretty good weeks themselves. But yeah, 335 yards from 37 throwing attempts, took the Titans to overtime, which no one would have expected. And I was looking at the box score before for this match, and they actually had a missed extra point.
No.
I probably
Jesus.
I know Gostkowski missed 2 field goals, but extra points are usually a given, so that's probably cost them there. But yeah, 2 touchdowns in the last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. Really clutch stuff, and I think the last 3 weeks he's really shown why people think he was like maybe the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the league going into the season. But yeah, loving what Deshaun's. I'm picking up what he's putting down. In terms of my QB rankings, I've changed my algorithm, so I've still got to backdate week 1 and week 2. Because before I had an algorithm that meant if you had a turnover, you couldn't get a vote. But I realized when Tom Brady threw 5 touchdowns and 1 interception, he didn't get a vote. I realized I was pretty stiff. But yeah, so from week 3 to 6, this is including, I've got Watson on top, then Lamar, and then a 3-way tie for third with Tannehill, Murray, and Herbert. But I know Wilson and Rodgers bummed in those 2 weeks, so they'll probably be on top once I backdate those. Risers of the week, though, mate. Who are you looking at here in the quarterback position?
Risers of the week. I'll start off with... Actually, no. I'll go with Ryan Tannehill. He's pretty much been rising every single week, but another 28 points this week against the Texans. And to be honest, he looks like a genuine top 10, if not top 8 QB going forward in fantasy.
Yeah, I think there's 2 tiers. Well, there's plenty of tiers of the quarterbacks this year. I think there's 1 tier of the elites. Like I'm talking Lamar, Mahomes, Murray, Rodgers, Wilson, Allen, and I think he's knocking on the door of that pack for me. I think he's the clear standout of the rest of them. But yeah, I love Tanner's in fantasy because he loves a rushing touchdown. He just gets bulk yards per attempt. Tennessee are just motoring at the moment. And you were saying he's just rising every week. His stats have been rising every week since Mariota got benched last year.
Yeah,
I remember in most leagues, he would have spent a few weeks on the waivers just racking up points. Then he slowly started to get added, and now he's a QB1 in pretty much every league. So, definitely a riser for me. I'm quite high on him. I had him as the QB12 going into last week, but yeah, I haven't done my rankings for this week. Starting next week, I'll try and get them done before we record. But yeah, I'll be shocked if he's still the QB12 in 24 hours for me. But yeah, my riser of the week. Well, we have a few risers, but Kyler Murray. I was very high on Kyler coming into this week. He was my QB3, so pretty hard to rise from there. I'm not quite sure who he's risen above, to be honest. But 28.92 against Dallas. They're a soft defense, but he's got Seattle and Miami with a bye splitting those two fixtures. But Seattle and Miami have been very leaky this season, and I can see the Cards putting up a few points against those two teams. But yeah, for me, the main thing with Murray is his running yardage, like Lamar last year. It just makes him a safe option every single week. It doesn't matter who he's playing. He's going to get around 50 rushing yards and likely a rushing TD as well, which is just to have that as pretty much a lock is just makes him such a spicy asset. And like on the week, well, on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was, he threw it 37.5%, only 9 completions, and he still whipped out 28.92. So he's a bit of a fantasy cheat code. But yeah, Kyler Murray, I'm frothing him in fantasy.
He's like Lamar last season.
Yeah, I can't lie. That trade could be occurring. Could make a little Lamar for Kyler. I don't know what to do with Lamar. I got rewarded for failing to trade him. I was attempting to, let me tell you, but he's got such hard fixtures coming up, so I don't really know what to do with him. But
well, mate, my other riser is Lamar Jackson. Yes. So he was starting to be doubted by a few people, including yourself. But he put the doubters to bed this week, showing that he should be in that top 3 QB range. 28 points. Eagles are a pretty good defense as well. Like, they're no slouch. Yeah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of it was rushing.
Yeah, most of it. He only had 180 in the air, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. But anyway, still, he's going to do that every week. So I think you should feel pretty good about him, mate, as an owner.
Yeah, I do feel good about him. And I actually think Lamar's an exception to just to logic, really. I think he actually does better. I think he does better the harder the team, because against the easy teams, like against Washington, he just didn't run because he didn't need to. Where against like the Steelers or the Titans, whoever they're playing, the Titans aren't actually that good in defense this year, but against the Steelers or whoever they've got coming up, he'll probably have no options because the coverage is so good, so he'll be forced to run, and then that increases the chance of him going on like a 50-yard run, which is just huge for fantasy. But yeah, I've probably reached the point where I think I've just got to commit to him for the whole season. Like, I don't really see a world where he, like, excluding this week, I don't see a world where he stays at that level that he was in the first 5 weeks for the rest of the season. So I think I've just got to stick it fat with him and just cop. He might have a few bad weeks, but ultimately he's going to end up with a pretty high average, and I'll just reap the benefits from that if I keep him. There were actually quite a few rises this week. I think the last few weeks we've struggled with QBs, but I think this week there was quite a bit of movement. For me, Carson Wentz is another riser. Going into this week, I had him as the QB 18. Actually had Andy Dalton above him.
So did I.
Which hasn't aged too well, but he got 29.42 against the Ravens, who are the third best passing defense in the league. He threw it 52.5% and had a fumble. So you're thinking he's had an absolute shocker there. And then he's just whipped out 29 points. So he just seems to be doing it this year. He's playing badly. He's got shocking completion rates. He's missing absolute sitter throws, but he's just learned how to be good at fantasy. He's quite mobile, actually, and he doesn't mind a rushing touchdown, which always helps. But yeah, in the next 3 matches, he's got the Giants twice and the Cowboys, and barring a bad game script where they might just run the ball after they go up against those in those 3 matches, he should score pretty well there. So And Deshaun Jackson's coming back this week, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah, that'll help.
positive signs for Wentz, and I can't see him really dropping below the QB 18 position that I had him last week for a good month. So I'll try and get him while you can. But I think Carson Wentz owners will be pretty high on him nowadays. But do you want to move on to the fallers or anyone else you want to mention?
No, that's it. I'll give a quick shout out to my boy Matt Ryan, 31 points, but I'll move on to the fallers.
Oh, wait, by the way, sorry. Where would you rate Tua? Definitely not asking because I just picked him up, but where would you rank him? I know he's not playing this week because of the bye, but how high on it are you on him?
It's really hard to say, but if I was gonna compare him to my 3 quarterbacks, I'd probably take him over Cousins, but not Burrow or Matt Ryan, just because there's still a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think if possible, because we have Superflex in our league, to those listening who haven't listened before, I wouldn't mind picking up Baker this week and just playing him for this round. And then
he's got the Bengals as well.
Yeah, because Lamar's got his bye. And then I might just have Tua as the backup for the rest of the year, because none of the other guys because for those listening, I just said it before, but Fitzy obviously got benched, so he was one of my quarterbacks. So now I had to pick someone off the waivers. None of the other guys have upside really. We're looking at like Foles, Kyle Allen, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I might just have Tua on the bench and hope he's a bit of a Herbert. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not too high on him though. But I'll cop it as a backup really. But yeah, who was your faller? Sorry.
Cam Newton first up. Before this week, I had him like really high, top 8, I think 7th, and put up, I think, 17 points this week against the Broncos. Wasn't really getting much going. Broncos are a good defense, but I don't really see him as a top 7 bloke anymore, especially considering how some of the other players like Tannehill and Matt Ryan performed. So he'll probably be sliding down for me.
Yeah, their offense just isn't really working at the moment.
Yeah, he's just going to be relying on rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that is a bit of a worry. You don't really want to be just relying on one stat.
Yeah.
In any situation. But I was pretty happy about it. I was versing Cam Newton and went a long way to my victory. But yeah, he was on like 3 at halftime or something, and he ended up getting to a decent score.
Hang on,
he ran it.
Did he score a rushing touchdown? He did. Didn't
I think he might have.
Yeah, I think
because I don't know how he got that score if he didn't, but he definitely ran a lot in the second half. I know that. I was thinking that when you said that, but I wasn't 100% sure. So
that was the only touchdown of the match, I'm pretty sure, because I know the Broncos kicker went berserk.
McManus, our man,
Brandon.
But yeah, Cam Newton would probably be sliding for me, especially considering I've got blokes like Watson and Tannehill below him. My other fallers, I've got Tom Brady. He probably unpopular one, but he scored 14.64 against the Packers, who were the 12th worst pass defense in the league, and his team scored 38 points. And if your quarterback's team scoring 38, you're probably wanting a little bit more than 14 points. The game script didn't suit him. They basically just gave Ronald Jones the ball the whole game, but it was the first time all his receivers kitted up. He had Miller, Godwin, Evans. I don't know if they were at 100%, but they were all there. And yeah, it just wasn't pretty for Brady owners. Yep, so that's all I've got for Tom Brady. I was quite high on him as well. I think he was my QB 8, so he'll definitely be coming down from those high heights there. Anyone else you want to mention?
Yeah, Andy Dalton. I think this controversial one, but I think considering he's replacing Dak Prescott in that system, a lot of people would have been pretty ambitious as to what Dalton would have put up, and he was unlucky. Gallup dropped a soda of a touchdown, and I think one of his picks should have been a defensive pass interference, but he looked nowhere near as good as Dak, and can't really see him putting up those numbers.
Yeah, that pick he almost threw, where there was just no one with it. There was no one with the defender. It was genuinely Jameis kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think he'll be fine, but I think it's probably you owned him until about an hour ago and you traded him off. I think that's a good decision. I don't think they have tough fixtures. I think it's pretty light on, but I think it will take a few weeks to get going. So I think he could be a target in like a month. But realistically, he's probably not in the top 20 quarterbacks, is he? So I don't think he's really that relevant to fantasy apart from being a backup. But yeah, I don't really know what's going on with over there. My other guy is Matthew Stafford. I was very high on Stafford. Tried to trade for him a few weeks ago because he had a soft run of fixtures, and then he's put up a 12.32 against the Jags. A lot of this comes down to game script because they did go up and then they basically just fed DeAndre Swift and Peterson. I think they had like just those two combined had like 30 carries or something. But yeah, similar to the Brady thing, in a 34-16 big win, you'd be wanting a little bit more than 12.32. All his receivers are fit and healthy. He does have good fixtures still to come, but this is probably put a bit of a bit of worry in my mind about him. And he was in a similar bracket to Brady and Newton with me, and all three of them are probably going to slide down a little bit this week. So yeah, sorry Stafford, we love you on the ball potty, but not a good week from you, my friend. Yeah, anyone else you want to mention? Fitzy, probably the biggest faller.
Yeah,
Getting absolutely dogged.
definitely Fitzy.
Yeah, I'm fuming about that one, to be honest. All right, moving on to the running back of the week. It's probably going to be unanimous. I think it might be unanimous at every position this week, to be honest. But Derrick Henry, do you concur?
Yep. There were quite a few good running backs this week, but Derrick Henry blew them out of the water.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, 212 yards from 22 attempts, 52 yards from 2 receptions. He had a 94-yard run and a 53-yard reception, both in the fourth quarter. Went a long way in securing the win for the Titans, including the match winner in overtime, where he just took the ball directly from the snap and powered through. He's basically unstoppable in certain situations, Derrick Henry. He's just so big and fast. Have you watched his touchdown?
No, I don't even want to watch it.
He honestly looks like he's so slow. And then you just see blokes near him just getting burnt.
Yeah.
It's like, geez. And he breaks all like the speed like records and stuff. Yeah. So
I remember
just,
last season when he had all those 100-yard touchdowns, he just looks 3 times bigger than anyone else out in the field. Like they just can't tackle him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a joke. I was listening to a potty and they were saying they reckon defensive backs are now scared to tackle him because what he did to Norman the other week with the big stiff arm. So they reckon he might benefit from that, but that's a bit far-fetched. But yeah, Derrick Henry definitely received the 10 votes for me. I hate to say it, but the man I traded away last week, Kenyon Drake, got the 9 votes for me. Also in the mix was Ronald Jones, DeAndre Swift, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire picked up 6 votes.
Yeah.
Won't bother going through the others. And then just quickly, the running back rankings. Kamara is still on top on 28. Derrick Henry on 21. Elliott on 19. Cook on 17. And Jacobs on 16. But yeah, now moving into the fantasy side of things. Risers of the week. Who you got here, big fella?
Well, actually, Derrick Henry, first up. We just talked about him.
Really?
But I know you can't rise much when you're already like that, but I think
true.
I think he's like. Would you have him top 3? Do you reckon now?
Well, he was my 3.
Oh, okay, so I had him
this week, so now he's probably my 2.
I had him 6 or 7, which is probably quite low. Pretty much just because it's a PPR league and he doesn't catch the ball, but
that's true. Yeah,
the bloke's just a freak. So
yeah. And like he's starting to do this every year. Like he just had a couple huge games, and even if he has a few not so big games, it's probably worth just having in your side because he's basically going to win you a few matchups for certain. My first riser of the week, I've got your man from last season, James Conner. He was my QB, my running back 11 going into the week, and he whipped out 17.2 against Cleveland. The game script suited him because they just fed him. But the main thing that excited me about this performance was Cleveland are the 6th best run defense in the competition, and he whipped out 17.2 against them. So yeah, for me, he's definitely rising. I actually tried to trade him in last week, but the owner of him is inactive on the game, which is what we love to see. But yeah, they actually play. I was looking at their fixture until week 16. They play bottom half run defenses.
Oh shit!
Like it's honestly the soft. They have Tennessee, Dallas, and Cincinnati as well. Like in that section, and they're all bottom 4. So extremely soft draw for James Conner. And if they get it, they're a pretty good team, so they're likely to get ahead in a lot of those games. And he's just going to run the ball down. So he's definitely someone. If he was owned by an active player, I'd be definitely having a crack at him. But no chance of getting him, thanks to my younger brother Campbell. Cheers, brother. Who's your other riser of the week?
Ronald Jones of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Another bloody Campbell owned player.
Yeah, all his players are rising in value, and his team's somehow beast, despite never looking at it. But I mean, when I verse him, he'll probably have 3 blokes on the bye, so I'll just grab a free win. But yeah, Rojo looks beast. Fournette's nowhere to be seen. He looks like a genuine elite talent, and the Buccaneers are a great offense. So he'll be scoring a touchdown every week, you'd imagine, and going for 80 plus yards.
Fournette has been questionable going into the last 2, so that would be my only worry. But I don't think Fournette's going to be able to get many touches given Rojo's form.
Yeah, Fournette will just come out on 3rd down, I think.
Yeah, very excited for Rojo. But yeah, once again, sad that he's pretty irrelevant for our league. But for those playing out there, definitely have a crack at Rojo. Where was he for this week for me? He was my 23, but yeah, definitely leapfrogging some of the blokes like Singletary, Montgomery, David Johnson. My other rise is probably someone ranked a bit lower, but JD McKissick of the football team. I had him all the way down in 52nd, which I don't know if that's a shock. I don't think many people know who he is, but he was started in our league, wasn't he? Didn't someone in our league start him?
Yep, Tyler started him.
Yeah, but he got 14.4 against the Giants, and you think that, that's not even good. The Giants are pretty bad. Giants are the 5th best run defense in the competition. So pretty spicy from McKissick, but more importantly, he's a huge piece in their passing game. I think given how poor they are on offense, I think the dump off is just the common play, really. So he's had at least 6 receptions in the last 3 weeks. And in a PPR league, that's just money for gold. Like that's money for jam there. Because that's a guaranteed basically 10 points if he's getting 40 yards from 6 receptions.
Yep.
And add a few carries to that, and you're loving what you're seeing. And then in the next 5 matches, they've got Dallas twice, Cincinnati, Detroit, and then they've got the Giants again. So very favorable fixture as Dallas the 2nd worst run defense, Cincinnati the 3rd worst, and Detroit are the 7th worst. So in larger leagues, he could probably be a RB2 or a flex player. But yeah, he's probably someone, I don't know if he'll be in the waivers for a lot of people, but definitely try and get him in because I think he could be a pretty spicy option. Faller of the week, I'll start us off for a change. I'll go the reverse snake order. David Johnson, I was very high on him this week. He had a great fixture coming up, and I had him as my RB14. Traded a lot to try and get him, but the owner is a stubborn little prick, and that's my older brother Lockie. If you've watched past episodes of this show, but yeah, couldn't get him, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. He got 13.9 against Tennessee, who were the worst run defense coming into week 6. And that 13.9 includes a touchdown. So he had a base score of 7.9 and his team scored 36 points and he didn't capitalize on that. And I know the game script didn't suit him because they were obviously chasing down the Titans, so they were just airing everything out. But you would be expecting a few dump-offs in that situation or at least a rushing touchdown to get them over the line. Well, he did get 1, but you'd be expecting just more points in general, really. And I was doing some research. Watson has done 17 dump offs in 6 weeks. That's split between Duke Johnson and David Johnson.
Is that
so? That's an average of less than. Yeah, that's done on targets. Yeah.
Oh shit.
So that's an average of less than 3 attempted dump offs a game. So they're not great for PPR, those two guys.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
not good.
David Johnson, he still has some good fixtures coming up, but I just think his scoring potential is pretty limited because he doesn't catch passes, and yeah, they just love to throw the ball basically. Who else have you got to talk about here in the Falls? Who's your main guy?
I'll start with Damien Harris, Patriots.
Good shout.
He jumped up in my rankings last week after running for 100 yards, and I think he had like 9 carries for about 25 yards this week. I'd say he's probably back into irrelevant territory going forward because they have Rex Burkhead and I don't know what's
Michelle's
I don't know
Michelle's coming back in like
Yeah.
2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely a big faller. He was already pretty irrelevant, but
Yeah. If he's not doing well without Michelle there, like
Yeah.
he's got no upside because Michelle's going to come back. His carries are only going to get fewer. The only chance he has is if he has a huge game in the next 2 weeks before Michelle comes back. But that's looking very unlikely. Yeah, he was my RB31, but I almost picked him up in free agency going into the week because I had a guy move to the IR spot. So I was tempted to pick him up because I thought he had a lot of upside, but I didn't, and I'm quite glad about that because I'm sure he will be, as you said, dropping into irrelevancy in my rankings. But yeah, for sure, he's not looking great either. Any of the Patriots options, really. My other faller of the week was my man Todd Gurley. He got 9.7 against Minnesota, who are just like a bang average run defense. But yeah, the team was ahead for most of the game, so he had 20 carries, which is what you love to see as a fantasy owner. You love to see volume, but this has been the worry with Todd Gurley all year: 2.4 yards per carry. And no matter how many times you touch the ball, we've seen it with Kenyon Drake all year. It's pretty hard to go big when you are getting absolutely nothing done on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, they scored 40 points. He didn't get any of them. He has a few good fixtures to come, but yeah, I was high on him. He was my RB15. He's probably going to drop quite a few spots after this round. But yeah, we were talking to Curtis about it before. He was saying this is what I was expecting: volume and TD potential, which is true. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really like someone who relies on TDs to be in my team because you know that they're bound to get a stink every now and then, which I don't really want to be a part of. But yeah, the volume is nice, but yeah, I don't know.
He hasn't been copping too much in the passing game, has he? Caught a few this week, but I don't think Ryan likes to dump it off.
I think they go to the other guy.
Brian Hill.
Yeah, I think they go more to him when they pass it. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, he hasn't been getting much done there. Who's your other faller of the week?
This one's kind of not really due to his performances, but Melvin Gordon. He was sick this week, but he's got this drink driving thing going on, and I haven't seen an update for a few days, but I think we're expecting him to probably get suspended at some point.
So yeah, I was doing some research about it. I don't really know why this is a thing, but apparently it's getting decided in like the second week of November. What suspension he gets.
So he's free to play before then.
I don't know how it works because I know, well, this is irrelevant to United States listeners, but I know in the NRL, which is like the rugby competition of Australia, that once, like before you go to court, you're not allowed to play. But I don't know if that's the same in the NFL because I don't think he's like ruled out for this week. So I don't know what's going on there. I was finding it hard to value him last week, knowing that it's apparently normally a 3-week suspension. So I found it hard to value him because we don't really know when that 3 weeks is going to hit. But I also saw something saying that if Denver's not happy with the league suspension, they're going to smack a few more weeks onto it. So yeah, probably not looking good for him. If he does play this week, I would probably try and offload him if I was a Melvin Gordon owner, and maybe try and offload him to someone who doesn't know that much about the NFL, who's not paid attention to the news, because
that's half our league.
Yeah, I definitely think I'd be getting rid of him. Anyone else you want to mention, or do you want to move on to your favorite men, the wide receivers?
Yeah, we'll go to the receivers, unless you have another bloke.
Nah, I'm all out there. I'm wide receiver of the week once again, unanimous. I don't even have to check with you. That jokes probably should. Justin Jefferson.
Okay, all right.
Or-
Wait, hang
or
on,
have you
hang on,
gone
hang
someone-
on.
Have you got someone else?
Oh no, I've actually gone someone else. Yeah.
Oh, okay, beautiful. I like that bit of variation. Yeah, I've gone Justin Jefferson, the rookie, as Pilch was mentioning, great rookie class, and he's one of the spearheads of it. 166 yards from 9 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Also caught a 2-point catch, which I think is it was a bit of junk time, but I think that's an underrated stat because that's pretty bloody hard to do. But yeah, he wasn't a loss, and it was to the Falcons, so pretty favorable. Like not really respectable elements there, but yeah, bit of a breakout game. And believe it or not, he's actually sitting on top of my votes. He's on 19 votes, and Calvin Ridley's on 18, Thielen's on 17, and then Julio's on 13.
That's
So
spicy. He could
pretty spicy if you're
he could
Jefferson.
actually win your votes because he either goes huge or has 2 catches for 10 yards.
Yeah, if he has 4 huge matches for the season, he's
Yeah.
genuine chance. So yeah, that's pretty spicy. Who's your man though? Did I mention him there?
Yeah, look,
I didn't.
I probably
mention
should have. I probably should have gone with Jefferson. He had better stats, but I went with your man Julio Jones. Playing in the same match, I gave it to Jones just because Jefferson kind of did everything in junk time when the game was kind of already finished, and Julio did it when it was there to be. The game was there to be won. So, yeah, I don't know. Gave it to Julio. Bit of variety.
Yeah, and Julio did get my 9 votes. So
Yeah. What was that's 2 touchdowns, 130 yards or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty spicy. Guess who got
Pretty
my 8
large.
votes? two catches. That's my hint.
Hopkins. Oh, who?
Same game though. Same game.
Oh, Christian Kirk.
Yeah, he whipped out like 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches or something like that.
Yeah,
It
that was outrageous.
an absurd stat line. But yeah, he got 8 votes for me. Fuller got 7, and T Higgins got 6.
Ooh, T Higgins.
But yeah,
I love T Higgins.
moving on to the rises and falls. Who's your number 1 riser, mate?
Julio Jones. Pretty much, I already talked about him, but he was coming off an injury. Like people were kind of, what's the word? Querying over whether he'd go straight back to his best, but he clearly is, and he's on probably a top 5 offense in the NFL. So he's back into the top 5 conversation for me.
Yeah, I think people were a bit low on him, to be honest, last week. He was actually my wide receiver 4, excluding Michael Thomas. So, yeah, but people would have had him down at like 8, 9, or 10, which I thought was quite disrespectful. I think the game that was scaring everyone, he went off. He had a 21% snap count. He had like 4 targets.
Yeah.
So if you like times that by 4 to get his normal snap count, he got 16 targets. So yeah, I think people weren't really looking into it enough. But yeah, Julio definitely a riser. Glad, similarly to Lamar, glad to have held on to him. And I didn't try trade Julio, but yeah, just glad I was patient with him. And he's delivering the goods for me. And he's probably locked in at my wide receiver 1 for the rest of the year, which I'm glad to say.
Your receivers are looking very good.
Yeah, got DK Metcalf in for those listening. Get around me for Adam Thielen. I think it's a pretty juicy trade myself. I've got 2 DJs for the rises of the week. No AJs, just DJs. DJ Chark. He was my wide receiver 56 going into the week. Don't ask why I've got rankings down to 56. They go a lot further, trust me. He got 11.5. But the thing that spices me up is he had 14 targets.
Shit.
His yards per reception, it's pretty bad. I think it's like 5 or 6 the last few weeks, but he's the go-to guy, and we've seen it a lot. We saw it last year with DJ Moore and Allen Robinson, that a number 1 receiver on a bad team can often be a fantasy asset just because of that volume. But yeah, for me, 14 targets was very juicy. I thought Chenault was almost taking over a little bit there, but I think Chark might have been a bit banged up. He missed a match in there. And yet next few matches he's got Chargers and the Texans, who aren't playing that well on defense so far this season. So and the game script's always going to suit the Jaguars receivers. So I'm not huge on him, but he's definitely a huge riser for me, given how low I had him going to this week.
Yep.
Who's your other bloke?
My other bloke is your other man, Brandon Cooks.
Thanks. I actually appreciate the love.
Throughout the season, I've picked up and dropped him off the waivers about 4 times, because every time I've picked him up, he's produced a donut, and then the next week he goes out and scores 15. But he kind of looks like he's settled in now, and he's going to start producing at quite high numbers. The Texans' offense is going to have a huge number of passing attempts per game because of game script. Fuller is probably the clear alpha there, but I think they're both going to cop quite a bit of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's as good as Hopkins or anything, but I think Fuller's getting a lot more volume than last year. But I do think Cooks is kind of slotted into that like first down role, the go-to guy when you need a catch to be taken, where Fuller's now back to his usual downfield target. But yeah, the Cooks role is perfect for fantasy. We were pretty worried, weren't we, at about 5 a.m. when he was on 2 points or something, because I just brought him in the night before, I think. And yeah, it wasn't looking great for me, but in the end, paid dividends, and he went pretty large. Also, oh no, they didn't get the ball in OT, did they? I was going to say that helped, but yeah, definitely a riser, and I think people should respect him. My other guy is DJ Moore. Mentioned that I've got 2 DJs. For me, I was getting a bit worried that Robbie Anderson was fully taking over in Carolina, but similar. Well, DJ Moore actually has quite a good yards per reception, which I didn't know he really possessed. I thought he was more a short target guy, but he had 11 targets last week against a quality Bears defense. Yeah, as I mentioned, week after week, he'd kind of been getting less and less targets, and Anderson's were going the other way, which I thought Moore was pretty bad in terms of fantasy. I had him all the way down at wide receiver 17 after he was like a top 10 prospect going into the season. But this week, Robbie Anderson only got 5 targets. And then they've got the Falcons in 2 weeks, which is a very juicy lineup for any wide receiver. And either side of that matchup, they've just got like bang average fixtures. So for me, DJ Moore could be a little bit of a buy low situation, but he's definitely a wide receiver starter in every league. And yeah, I just think you could get him in a bit of a bargain this week. So yeah, I'm pretty high on the DJ Moore. Do you have anyone else you want to mention?
No, that's it for risers.
All right, fallers, who you got?
I'll start with Cooper Kupp from the Rams. He looked very bad, not just in fantasy, but in real life against the 49ers.
He cost them the match.
Yeah.
It's like dead set.
He dropped 2 key passes that a top class receiver should be taking. And yeah, I don't know. Like, people are real high on Kupp and Woods going into the year, but they're not really getting the targets. I think the Rams are trying to get the run going as a priority. I don't know if it's because they don't trust Goff or whatever, but yeah, I wouldn't really want Cooper Kupp on my team at this point. He's definitely borderline wide receiver 3 territory for me.
Yeah, they're almost trying to play like the 49ers do, I reckon, with that committee backfield, and then they've just got some talented wide receivers and some good tight ends that they don't get bulk touches, but they get a few big plays every now and then. And Kupp missed his opportunity when he had the chance for those big plays.
Yeah.
One of them was like a pretty large throw, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Was one in the end zone? I can't.
Yeah. One was like a side like that.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it went through his hands, and then the other one was like over the shoulder.
Yeah.
And he went guessed the wrong way, basically.
Yep.
I look like an idiot, don't I? Trying to take a catch sitter down at my desk. Yeah, but he's definitely a faller for me. I have him all the way down at 21. So yeah, I would hop off. Fallers, my main man is Adam Thielen, and I'm absolutely rapt to have him in the fallers section this week because I traded him away for Metcalf, as I mentioned before. But for me, it's a worry. He only caught 5 targets against one of the worst pass defenses in the competition in the Falcons. The game script suited them perfectly. Dalvin Cook was out. It was going to be the passing game was finally going to stand up for the Vikings, and they decided to just pepper Jefferson. He managed to get a fairly decent score, which we were mad about because the owner of them is Curtis, who has been on the show before, but we hate him as a bloke. And no jokes, we love him, but we're getting annoyed with how good his fantasy team is. But Thielen, he managed to get like 14, but I think it was including a touchdown.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I don't think like Jefferson's the number one there or anything ridiculous, but I do think Jefferson week after week is becoming more and more involved, and I think ultimately that's going to affect Thielen. And they do have fairly easy fixtures coming up, but yeah, he was my wide receiver 6 coming to this week. I was very high on him, but yeah, I'm not too keen on him now. I think in the tight games he's kind of the go-to, but whenever there's a bit more freedom going around, whether it's a big win or a big loss, I think they kind of turn away from him. So yeah, I'm worried about Thielen big time. Who's your other faller of the week?
Yeah, this is one we're probably both stoked about, but Juju Smith-Schuster. He's
Why? Why are we stoked about that again?
because you have Deontay Johnson, and I have Chase Claypool, so more opportunity for them too. But yeah, all good, mate. But I think there's a genuine chance that Juju's becoming the wide receiver 3 on that offense.
4.
Maybe
back in
4,
Washo.
yeah, backing in James Washington. But I mean, when Deontay Johnson was fit, he absolutely like killed Juju in targets. I think he had double his targets. And then now Chase Claypool's clearly broken out. Claypool won't get as many targets, but he's just a big play specialist. But I'd be very worried about Juju.
I didn't notice him on the weekend. Did you? Did you see him?
Well, I didn't watch the game.
Oh yeah. You just.
I don't think anyone saw him because he had 2 catches for 6 yards. So
yeah, I honestly don't remember seeing him at all. Like I just saw Washington and Claypool every play.
Wait, was that game on?
Yeah, that was the TV game.
Oh, I thought it was Denver Patriots.
Oh no, thank God it wasn't that.
Oh, hang on, wait. There were 2 games. I think they were the 2 games.
Oh, really? It was one on Channel 7.
Yeah.
Should have checked it out. Should have watched. I would have been able to tell you if there was a touchdown otherwise. For me, my other guy is Darius Slayton. There's probably this rogue one, but I was pretty high on him coming to this week. He was my wide receiver 23. Once again, like some of the other guys I've mentioned, I was trying my guts out to get him. So good to see my trade instincts are absolutely horrid.
How's Cork not giving up Darius Slayton?
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I wasn't offering much. I was offering like Cooks or John Brown.
Okay, fair.
These weren't trades involving Lamar Jackson. But yeah, he was my wide receiver 23 coming into it. He only had 4 targets against Washington, which is a huge concern. Next up, they've got Philadelphia and Tampa. And at this point, he's basically just become reliant on touchdowns. He has 1 score larger than 8 when he doesn't score a touchdown. So it's pretty much touchdown or bust at this point for Slayton. Yes, I do think he's one of these weird blokes who almost does better against the good offenses because I think Jones doesn't trust anyone else and just goes to him. But I think he's questionable for this week as well. I think Sterling Shepard's due back soon. So I think there's a lot of things going against Darius Slayton. And for someone who had him at wide receiver 23, he's definitely going to plummet for me this week. Anyone else you want to mention, or do you want to move into the irrelevant position that is the tight ends?
I mean, I don't have any more names, but also not too keen on talking about the tight ends this week.
So
disgusting.
Yeah, I can't lie. It was pretty hard to pick risers and fallers. I just didn't really care that much. But in terms of tight end of the week, I've gone boring and I've given it to George Kittle. 109 yards from 7 receptions, 1 touchdown. They looked pretty good as a whole unit, the 49ers offense, but Kittle once again stood out. And the Rams have allowed the fewest net yards per attempt going to it, and he's whipped out 109 yards, 7 receptions. So, yeah, he's just absolute joke of a bloke. Absolute legend, and I love that. Have you seen that ad on ESPN? And he goes like, "It's Jimmy G." It gets me every time for some reason. The
Oh,
way he's
is that when
taking,
he was like mic'd up on the
yeah,
field?
yeah, and he just turns to the camera and voices Jimmy G and just takes a piss out of him.
I've
But yeah,
heard Kittle's got quite good gags when they get the
yeah,
mics
on
on him.
mic'd up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do like the tight end day I can't remember what week it is, but every year they have one round, which is tight end round. And he goes up to all the tight ends and says like happy tight end day or something. It's like weird as, but yeah, tight end of the week, George Kittle. Who have you gone with?
I've gone with Anthony
Yeah.
Ferkser, I think his name is, from
Yeah.
the Titans. Pretty sure he only got the opportunity because Jonnu Smith got injured right at the start of the game, but eight receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Can't really go past him. Was a great performance, but he's
Yeah.
the most irrelevant bloke going round. So do not pick
No.
him up in fantasy.
Yeah, hoping someone drops a good tight end for him or something.
He's
But yeah,
projected 3, so probably won't be happening.
Yeah, he got the 9 votes for me. Trey Burton, kind
Yeah.
of a shock factor there.
I
Actually had him pretty
gonna
high in the
stream him.
preseason.
I was going to stream
Really?
him, yeah.
Yeah, I was high on him in the preseason because I think he did really well like 2 or 3 years ago at the Bears, and then he's had injuries since then. But he whipped out 2 touchdowns, including a rushing TD. And Kelsey got 7, and Gronkowski, my man, got 6 votes for me. And then that takes the tight end totals. Kelsey's still on top with 34 votes. Mark Andrews is somehow there with 26. Johnu is chilling on 24. Kittle's on 20. And my faller of the week, Mike Jasicki, is on 17 votes.
Where's
but yeah,
Darren? Where's Darren Waller, mate?
he is currently sitting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's sitting in 7th. He's on 14 votes.
We'll take it.
He's only polled twice, I think. But yeah, sorry to those listening. That was awful podcast content, just counting to 7. So yeah, but riser of the week in the tight end spot. Who have you got here, mate?
Riser of the week. Another one of your men, Gronkowski. You found
Mate, I appreciate this. I appreciate it.
Well, you had an unreal week, but you've genuinely found yourself. You finally found yourself your tight end one, I reckon, with the Gronk, because he genuinely looks good, and he's projected 12 on fantasy this week, which is like top 5 tight ends
for a tight end.
Top 5
really.
tight ends. So maybe he's finally clicking into that offense.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was my tight end 13 going into it, so I wasn't too happy to be playing him, but it was because Jared Cook had the bye, who was also my tight end 12, so it's pretty dire straits there. Tried my hardest to get Ertz, so thank whoever is control of the world for rejecting that trade. But yeah, pretty happy with the Gronk. A few guys have had a crack at him this season. I think he got drafted fairly early, but I think I'm finally going to reap the rewards of what he was promising. But yeah, very happy to have Gronk on my side. Looking good. Even with all the receivers back, he still looks like he's going to be one of Brady's favorite targets, especially in the end zone. And playing on a good team, an end zone target is what we like to see, a bit like Jonnu Smith. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how high he can go on my rankings because there are quite a few good tight ends. But my riser of the week is my former man, Austin Hooper. I think he's been the riser of the week 3 weeks in a row. But
not ideal.
Every week he just keeps getting stronger. He had 10.2 against the Steelers, following a 10.7 against the Colts. We're talking about 2 of the best defenses in the league right there. 6+ targets for 3 weeks in a row now. And now he's got Cincinnati, Las Vegas, and Houston, which are all very favorable pass defenses. So yeah, very excited to see what Hooper can do in the next month. If he can add a few touchdowns to the board, he's going to skyrocket in value. Could legit become one of the top 5 given his target rate. Obviously, Baker's not the greatest quarterback to have. He loves his 50% completions. We see Odell getting bloody 11 targets, 4 receptions, stuff like that. But yeah, I like Austin Hooper a lot. Faller of the week. Who have you? Oh, have you got another riser? Sorry.
Yeah, Trey Burton. we just talked about him before at the Colts, but I think he's kind of announcing himself as the number one tight end there. I think Jack Doyle might be injured still. Not 100% sure about that, but Mo Ali Cox has fallen off the face of the earth, and Burton looks quite good. I was genuinely going to stream him this week, but I just chose Jimmy Graham over him, which was all right because he scored like
he did
9.
fine.
But yeah,
I might pick up Jimmy Graham, but don't know if I rate him over.
He looks quite good. He got 8 targets, I think.
Yeah, he gets peppered. It's just whether the Bears can score enough points to make him a great asset to the side. I just don't know if I rate him over Cook or Gronkowski, but we'll see how the rankings turn out this week.
Indeed.
Mo Ali Cox has been injured the last 2 weeks. That's where he's gone. But
Okay.
even before then, he wasn't getting many targets. He was just like an end zone specialist. So, I think Trey Burton. I think he's shown in the past as well. He's got what it takes to be a top level tight end. So we'll see what he can produce in the next few rounds. But I rate that one. Bit of a pod, big fan of it. Faller of the week for me, I only had one riser because stuff the tight ends, but faller of the week for me by an absolute country mile, Mike Gesicki. What are you doing, my friend? He's got. Were you against him?
Yeah, I was stoked.
You were laughing.
You were stoked to say that.
If he got like 20, were you in trouble or no?
No, I won by like 50.
Oh, no worries there, mate. But he had 2 targets out of his team's 7 tight end targets. I don't even know the other bloke's names.
Shaheen.
I think Adam Shaheen Sharafredi, Adam Shaheen and Durham Smythe or something. They both had touchdowns. So to think his name is Smythe. It's SMYTHE.
That's like
it can't be Smith.
That's like on Ricky Ponting Cricket 05 when they can't spell the names correctly. So Steve Smith's name's spelled as like Steve Smythe.
No, they were the best. But yeah, I've got Mike Gesicki, 2 targets out of the team's 7. Both the other tight ends had touchdowns, so they might see a bit more action in the following weeks. But yeah, 0 receptions against the Jets. They're a bottom 5 pass defense, and he's got the bye this week, and then following that, he's got the Rams, the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the Broncos. So if you have Gesicki right now, good luck trying to trade him, but honestly, trade him. Because you do not want him in your side. He was my QB 7 coming into the my tight end 7.
You say QB for every.
I say QB. It sounds way better than TE7. But yeah, my tight end 7. So yeah, get off the Mike Gesicki bus. Who are your fallers?
Yeah, Mike Gesicki as well, and Evan Ingram. He's kind of been falling every week, but it's finally at the point where he's just absolutely irrelevant and he's an absolute bust. Like he's just scored like 4 points every single week. I don't know. I actually don't know what's happened to him. Because
who gets the Giants yards? Like who gets them?
Yards, mate?
I don't even get who gets them. Like they actually honestly must have 150 team yards every week.
Danny Dimes like genuinely struggles to go over 200 yards each week. He normally scrambles for like 60 yards and still scores 8 fantasy points.
So, yeah, I don't know. Because like Freeman didn't even do that well on the weekend. We've just both said Ingram and Slayton had shockers and they've somehow won. Like I'm not sure where the missing piece is, but there's some Giants myth out there who's balling and we just don't know who he is. But yeah, that's it for the player/fantasy section. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you've gotten this far. I need to keep saying that because like if I cut it up into clips like I do, I need to make sure I say it in every clip. But no, things we need to
put it in the preview clip.
Yeah, I should have put some like thing that drops down halfway through or something. But things to watch out for in week 7 of the NFL. What are you excited for this week?
Well, I've said this one 3 weeks in a row, but I just have to keep it there until it actually happens. But Michael Thomas impact on the Saints offense. I say it every week. So yeah, not much to be said.
Yeah.
Need him to bloody play.
Yeah, the Saints are going to, like, I don't want to keep bringing this back to fantasy, but the Saints are going to dictate how I go for fantasy. Now, Drew Brees is my QB2 and Cook, although Gronk is producing, he's probably, in my opinion, still my tight end 1. So hopefully the Saints come back after the bye and they come back to 2019 form. But yeah, definitely excited to see how he goes, especially after we've seen how Julio can transform the Falcons offense. We'll see if he can do the same thing there. For me, number one is who is the early king of the AFC? Who's the front runner? We've got the Steelers versus the Titans, the two undefeated AFC teams matching up against each other. Only one's going to come out undefeated still, barring a tie. And yeah, very exciting to see this one. Going to be interesting to see how the Steelers defense matches up against the Titans offense, because so far the Titans offense hasn't really met anyone that can stop them since week 10 last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go against what has been the most consistent defense in the last year season and a bit. So very excited for that one. I'm not sure what time it is. Hopefully it's in the 4 a.m. slot, so the lads are just absolutely out of their heads just watching it. Are we going round 2, by the way? Are we going the 4 a.m.?
There's a good chance. I have an assignment due at 9 a.m, so I might be...
Well, I'm doing it out of leisure, so you'll be joining me.
Honestly,
mate.
I probably would have done it out of leisure anyway, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Henry, because they're clearly the number one run defense in the NFL, and I believe one of the Titans' linemen got injured.
He did
against the Texans.
His name's like Taylor Lewin or something, and apparently he's like one of the best.
Yeah,
and they traded one of their tackles to the Browns in the off season, so yeah, bit of a worry for Tannehill and Henry. But any other things you want to mention for week 7 of the NFL?
Yep, the Pittsburgh wide receiver situation. I'm keen to see if Juju is going to be the number 3 receiver for the rest of the season there. I don't know. Deontay Johnson's an interesting one. You picked him up on fantasy. I'm hoping he stays as the alpha target man.
Thanks.
He's honestly one of my favorite players. Have no idea why, but I think he's a really good player. And obviously Chase Claypool is a weapon. So
yeah. My next one is, are the Bears legit? They've just been scraping together these weird wins over the last few weeks. They did beat the Bucks in their defense, but yep, they scraped a win over the Panthers on the past week, and this week they're up against the Rams at the Rams. So I think this is I think we'll find out if they can scrape together a win here. I think we're just going to find out that they're going to make the playoffs doing this, because their defense is so good. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their offense goes against the likes of Aaron Donald, because they've been struggling at the best of times. So be interesting to see how many points they can put up there. And they are 5-1, so a win here and it's almost sewed up for them. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Bears go. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, this is the one I'm nervous about for my fantasy team, but the Chiefs backfield with Le'Veon Bell going there. I'm praying that Clyde Edwards-Helaire stays as the alpha role. I think he will. Like, Bell will take some snaps, but I'm hoping Bell just comes out on third down, because he's just a huge upgrade on Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson. So he'll probably catch a few passes and be a touchdown threat, but I reckon Clyde will still get those 20 carries per game.
Yeah, I hope so for you, brother, because you've copped a lot of average luck so far in fantasy.
Thanks, mate.
Who are they playing?
Denver, so not a good matchup for running back.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. My final point is, can Dallas still make the playoffs? They've got Washington, and if they lose against Washington, I know it's only Dalton's second match under center, but I'm probably ready to put a line through them if they lose this weekend. I think this is their first. Like the Cardinals, they've got a pretty good record now, but going into it, I don't think they're in the greatest of form, and they put Dallas to the sword. So Washington, who just lost to the Giants in a low-scoring affair, if they can beat Dallas, yeah, I'm willing to rule them out, and I'm willing to hand the crown to the Eagles already in week 7. So interested to see who comes out on top there. Anything else you want to mention before we go?
Yeah, that actually is very interesting, because I still think Washington are tanking, but honestly, if they don't tank, I reckon they're genuinely a sniff to beat the Cowboys, because I think it's in Washington.
Yeah, it is. And Washington's defense is probably underrated.
Yeah.
I think, especially their run D, which is not ideal for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and the Cowboys' O-line's been severely underperforming. I think they have a couple injuries through it, so they might struggle.
Before we go, I just thought of this question. I always think of questions after I want to ask them, if you know what I mean. But you said Melvin Gordon was a faller. Where does that put Phil Lindsay?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. He's interesting because, I mean, he'll be obviously alpha there if Gordon's out, but he doesn't. We've kind of saw in previous seasons he doesn't really average huge even when he is the alpha. So I don't know, but definitely should be rostered. I think Quinn has him though. So
yeah, I'm not keen on him at all. I don't know why I've asked it, but there's a general consensus in the league that Phil Lindsay's the greatest player ever. Like, I feel like for some reason everyone froths him. Don't know if it's his hair or something, but yeah, in terms of fantasy, he's not been great the last few seasons. So I don't know. On the weekend though, he didn't get a touchdown, and I think he got 11 points or something just off base stats. So that's not a bad starting point if Melbourne does get suspended for 3 or 4
that's
weeks
against the Pats as well.
Yeah, that's not bad. Their defense has been pretty poor though this season.
But
I
think their run D has been quite good.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. All right. Any final statements you want before we sign off?
No, mate, that's it. Keen to watch some Will Fuller highlights before I go to sleep, but that's about it. Just acquired him in fantasy for those playing at home.
Yeah, keen for our Will Fuller, Deontay. Wait, who was I trading
Jefferson
for him? Oh, yeah, Justin Jefferson. That's right. Well, that'll be done before Sunday. I put money on it. But yeah, thanks for joining me as usual, Pilch. Loved it, even though it's been a long one. Hopefully you haven't minded.
I've loved it, mate.
But yeah, if you've enjoyed the episode, feel free to subscribe, follow, like, comment, just everything. Get around the social medias. This is a weekly episode, and we do other sports in and around it. So if you just like NFL, you can just tune in every Thursday for this one. Or if you're just a lover of sports, just keep an eye out because there's always different episodes coming out. But thanks for listening. If you've got this far, very well done. And yeah, same time, same place next week. We'll catch you there. Enjoy week 7. Looking forward to the night shift. See you, lads.